Hello everybody, and welcome to our stream of Lucifer Within Us. This is a special preview that we're showing off to you to give you a chance to learn a little bit more about the game before its full release. You can check it out on October 15th, it'll be available on Steam, and I'm glad that you're able to join us today. My name's Josh, you can find me on Twitter at Wallstormer, and I'm happy to have a chance to share this game with you today as we go through and investigate the means to perform a digital exorcism. For folks who are unfamiliar, Lucifer Within Us is a digital murder mystery game. We play as Ada, a digital exorcist who exists in the last city in humanity. Technology and religion have evolved and fused together into this sort of strange hybrid. And in this world, murder has not happened for over 100 years, but as we enter into the beginning of the game, we find the murder has actually been committed, and on holy ground at that. So as Ada, we go through and we perform an investigation, trying to gather clues and take witness testimonies to figure out the truth behind what has happened. Now, in this world, the belief is that if somebody has committed a crime, particularly a crime as heinous as murder, there must have been a supernatural, an additional motivation, a demon at play. And so what we'll do as Ada is go through and we will gather evidence to try and find out not just what happened, but also the motivations behind the different things that have taken place. And hopefully we'll be able to get to the core of not just who committed the murder, but why, unveiling the demon that motivated the kill, and then being able to perform an exorcism to do that, to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Now, today, like I said, we're going to be going through a little bit of the first case in the game. We're going to enter in as Ada is trying to figure out how to handle a seeming difference between the stories of two brothers who are talking about how a woman unfortunately, tragically murdered. 100 years without murder. 100 years without demonic possession. Then this. I am Sister Ada, exorcist and investigator. This is my testament to the massacre at St. Walpurgis Abbey. It is truth. Do not believe the lies of my accusers. So, we're going to go ahead and figure out just a little bit more about what's happening here as we get started and figure out what Sister Ada's account really is. St. Walpurgis Abbey in the Cybernetics Workshop.
Sister Ada, welcome.
Okay, so we're getting started. It looks like we're meeting somebody named Virgil.
I am Virgil, Chief Inquisitor at St. Walpurgis Abbey.
Okay, fair enough.
We may be in need of your talents as an exorcist. You can survey the evidence yourself, but I think you will agree.
Has there truly been a murder?
It seems so. A respected priestess, Mother Miriam, passed this morning under suspicious circumstances.
Now, you can see in the space that we're at, it's like, oh, everything seems pretty clean and orderly. Until we see back here, something has obviously gone down. A demon may be present, here even now, possessing someone. So, this game draws a bit on, for folks who've played visual novels, you'll know that there are some lines that come with voice dialogue, and then some lines that don't have voicing. So I'm going to try and use a little bit of my own attempts at vocal talents to help fill in some of the voice lines that we don't have here.
What happened exactly?
Mother Miriam was only recently appointed as successor to Abbot Gregory.
Okay.
This morning, she came to the workshop to receive her coronet of office.
Something went wrong with the installation.
Yes, to put it mildly, the coronet oversurged, killing Mother Miriam. Brace yourself for the sight.
Now you'll notice that in this world, we have again this fusion of technology and religion. And even you can see the small kind of signpostings here that show you that this is a distant future where cybernetics have really infused into humans. Each of these, we'll learn a little bit more about these markings that are here up at the top, but know that they are not just makeup or markings, that they have a significance to the world.
Then, the workshop operators, Gideon and Ruben, are the prime suspects. They are brothers, right?
Yes, but it's highly out of character for Gideon or Ruben to kill someone.
Even so, they were the only ones present when Mother Miriam died.
Daemons nurture our sinful desires into unthinkable actions, Virgil.
Oh no.
One of the brothers has surely been seduced by a daemon. Whichever it is, I will unmask his lies and cast out the daemon within him.
Oh, alright, so Ada is on a mission, team.
May Einsoft's will be done. Amen.
Now, we're going to get a little bit of context here as to not just what we're doing in exorcising the daemons, but how. So, to exorcise a daemon, we must uncover 4 things.
First, the suspect. We must identify which sinner is possessed by a daemon. Second, the opportunity. When exactly was the murder committed?
Okay.
We can pinpoint the opportunity by analyzing each suspect's testimonies.
This makes good sense.
Third, the means by which the murder has been committed. The means can be found among the physical evidence at the scene of the incident. Fourth, the motive of the murderer, which can be found in their inner world, their sanctum.
Okay, so we're getting the systemic breakdown of how to solve a case. Not just figure out who did it, but know each individual step so that we can verify that we've come to the correct conclusion.
The motive will tell us which daemon possesses the sinner.
Very well. Let us begin our holy work.
Alright, so we begin. We are dropped into our sort of overworld view. Lucifer Within Us takes place in a sort of isometric view. We have a camera that looks over the crime scene, and we will play as Ada, going through and performing an investigation. You'll notice that around the scene, we have a bunch of different glowy objects. We'll be able to learn more about the evidence that's present in the world. We also have characters who are standing by, and we can talk with them to gain more information about the case. What we're going to want to do is find a combination of different kinds of evidence that help us figure out exactly what's going on. Because odds versus possibilities, we're not going to get the whole truth from any one person. So why don't we go ahead, and I think it is nice to get started with a little bit of contextual information, right? Let's hear from the witnesses who are standing here, and then we'll go through and we'll see what evidence we can find in the area. Start by talking to this person here, Gideon, the younger brother.
This is madness! I will not suffer this injustice!
Okay, Gideon seems to be quite agitated. Let's find out why.
I am Gideon the Grand, the greatest cybernetician of our generation.
Gideon carries a lot of confidence.
I am blessed. I don't know what went wrong this morning. My hands are guided by the divine.
I see only gaudy trinkets here.
Wow, so Ada comes in and is like, actually, I don't care what you have to say. I'm just here for the facts.
Mother Miriam died by your hands. Is that not so?
No! Why would I want to harm her? Mother Miriam was my patron. She loved me like a son. I did nothing wrong. The consecration chamber must have been compromised. There's some like impromptu alliterations here in the game, and they're kind of fun. But anyway. Sister Ada is here to seek the truth, Gideon. You have nothing to fear if you are innocent. Please hear Gideon's testimony, Sister Ada, and judge for yourself if he speaks true. Testimony of a suspect is divided into events. You can access detailed descriptions of events by hovering over them. You can manipulate the timeline marker to navigate to any moment in the testimony. Let's listen to what Gideon has to say. Alright, so this is going to introduce us to one of the main places that we're going to engage during Lucifer Within Us, which is the timeline. Each character is going to contain their own row, which contains their own account as to what has taken place during the time that the murder was supposed to have transpired. So by pressing the play button here, we'll be able to just watch in real time what supposedly has taken place according to the person that we're speaking to.
Mother Miriam came to me for her consecration ceremony. I've performed this many times before, so I was confident.
Okay. Mother Miriam walks in, chatting a little bit about some robot bodies, something like that. That seems reasonable, you know, like you do when you're talking about a consecration ceremony. Yep, now somebody else is showing up.
To prepare for the ceremony, I ordered Ruben to take Mother Miriam to the consecration chamber.
Alright, fair enough.
Meanwhile, I adjusted the cornet's amplifier.
Wait a second. Let's re-examine what he said about Miriam's arrival. So, one of the things that you'll be able to do over the course of the game is drag the timeline back and forth so that you can analyze precisely the moment that you're looking for over the course of the investigation. So we're going to take the timeline marker and drag it
Mother Miriam
back.
came to me for her consecration ceremony.
And that'll let us flash back to this moment and realize, interesting. Gideon does not mention Ruben being present while greeting Mother Miriam. Notice that he ordered Ruben to go ahead and take her to the consecration chamber, but how is Ruben not present here at the beginning? That's going to be something that we might need to come to later. So let's select Miriam's arrival and ask Gideon about it. Okay, so we're going to click on Miriam's arrival, and as we click it, you'll see that a little ask button pops up. Good. I should remember that I can ask a suspect about any statement in a testimony. Were you alone when greeting Mother Miriam? Yes, I'm certain I was alone then. He insists that he was alone. I wonder if Ruben will corroborate this. For now, let's finish hearing the rest of his testimony. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to drag our timeline
Meanwhile,
back.
I adjusted the cornet's amplification at my work table, and then placed it on Mother Miriam's head.
Let's go ahead and press our play button from here and see what else he has to say. Nice thing is we don't have to sit through all of the testimony that we saw before. You can see that he takes the coronet, which apparently he took from his workbench, places it on Mother Miriam's head, and goes ahead and shuts the chamber.
We began by closing our eyes and praying together to Ein Sof. I thought I heard the chamber open, but didn't think much of it.
Okay. Now, I gotta admit, there's a part of me that feels like, I mean, I'm you know, can focus deep in various circumstances, but I feel like if I was performing this, like, super important ceremony...
Then I activated the consecration chamber and began the ceremony itself. The aether output was within safe ranges.
Like, you just randomly thought you heard the door open and didn't think you wanted to check it out and see what was going on? That seems a little suspicious, Gideon. Uh-oh. Dang. That is quite the end to the case. I've heard enough. Let's leave him for now. Alright, so we'll go ahead and hit our leave button. We have collected information from Gideon to figure out his account of how this happened. But Ruben, who he said he ordered to take Miriam to the consecration chamber, is also here. So why don't we go ahead and collect some information from him too about his accounts of what happened.
An exorcist? Surely there are no demons here, though. This was an accident, wasn't it?
Okay, so started as an
If
accident.
Gideon is possessed, that would mean he did it on purpose. Horrible.
You must be the elder brother.
Yes, my name is Ruben Garamond. I am responsible for the engineering and design of our implants.
How did Mother Miriam die, exactly?
It was a completely preventable accident.
Completely preventable accident.
Mother Miriam died because Gideon deliberately flouted the ceremonial guidelines for his own glory.
So at first, it looked like we were going to have this conversation about like, oh, it was just an accident. But now it looks like Ruben is pointing some fingers.
Gideon may be my flesh and blood, but he must take responsibility for his negligence.
Let us hear what Ruben has to say. Keep in mind that Ruben's testimony may differ greatly from Gideon's version of events. If an event is corroborated by another suspect's testimony, it will be marked as verified on the timeline. Let's listen to what Ruben has to say. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and again, here on the same timeline interface, but you'll notice that now we have a new row that dictates what happened when Ruben was here at the scene of the crime.
Mother Miriam came to us to receive a consecration ceremony, but she wanted something extravagant. Gideon suggested setting the coronet to have maximum ether output. I warned him that doing so is highly dangerous.
So this is already very different, because Gideon makes it sound like, oh no, we were just sitting here chatting and everything was fine. It sounds like Ruben expressed a concern
Gideon
from the
convinced her
beginning.
to move forward with the ceremony anyway. Since he was going to handle everything, I went back to my tasks.
Okay. This part of his testimony is rather long and repetitive, Ada says. Let's move ahead to the next section, try to stop ceremony. So you can see here, this section, return to work. Like, are we just gonna sit here and watch him tap, tap, tap at his computer the whole time? Probably not super engaging. So one of the nice things is that we can jump back and forth on the timeline as we need. So why don't we go ahead and jump up to try to stop ceremony.
When Gideon activated the consecration chamber, I immediately felt something was wrong. I begged Gideon to stop, but he didn't listen.
Good, I was growing impatient. Let's observe the rest, but unfortunately we know how this ends. I've heard enough. Let's leave him for now. Now that we've heard the testimony from each suspect, let's think carefully. There's only one truth to the chain of events of this morning, and I doubt that either brother has told it to us. So we must rely on Einsoft's greatest gifts to us, our minds. There are three ways we should consider what we've discovered. Now keep in mind, Ada is the sort of one of the High Inquisitors, is one of the people who's going to be responsible for essentially dispensing justice and making sure that it's dispensed properly. So the nice thing about this is that we go through and we're not only learning the mechanics of how we're supposed to go through and solve the case as players, but also understand the system that the sort of the world has put together to make sure that it metes out justice. It gives us a chance to not just learn about how to play the game, but also learn about the narrative and the lore of the world as well. Now, the first way is deduction. Since there can only be one truth, if two things don't align, one or both of them are false. If Gideon and Ruben do not agree on something, someone is lying. Or, if what they say do not match the evidence I find, then they must be lying. Second is induction. I should base my theory on what I discover. If my theory does not align with any of the testimonies or evidence that I find, then I should discard it. If two theories are possible, then I should prefer the one that has more information that supports it. That said, induction alone is usually not enough. Finally, abduction. I must hypothesize what could have happened, filling gaps in information with my imagination. That seems fair. Abduction feels like it's in regards to my I shouldn't do. I obviously have not done much abduction lately. My abs are. This is besides the point. This is the fastest and the most powerful way of thinking, but also the most fraught. I should engage in each of the three ways in order to uncover the truth. Okay, so we've got our sort of scientific method of case deduction, right? We've gone through, we've collected evidence from we've collected testimonies from both of our witnesses here. So now why don't we go around and we're going to collect some evidence here in the, you can see that we've got this whole wide area with a number of flashing objects. And I think the nice thing about having those flashing objects is for folks who might might remember even some old school games where you would go through it and you just click on everything trying to hope that you'll find whatever the significant item is. This way we can go through and we know exactly where the evidence is, and it helps save us a bit of time as we're exploring. Now, I think the best place to start is going to be the actual scene of the murder itself, right? So we still have Miriam's body, which hasn't been moved because we're the investigator. So we're going to examine Mother Miriam's body. Mother Miriam's body, a valuable piece of physical evidence. A new entry is now added to your evidence panel, which can be found on the lower left of your display. There, you can access detailed information about Mother Miriam's body. You must present them to suspects in order to discover any contradictions. Okay, so down here in the lower left-hand column, or in the lower left-hand corner, you can see that we have our physical evidence, and then we can click here on Mother Miriam's body, and we'll get a little bit of additional information. The body is completely unharmed, but her head has exploded into a mess of blood and bone fragments. We also have another piece of evidence we picked up too, the coronet remains. Found near Mother Miriam's body, parts of the amplifier component and bits of the casing have survived the explosion. Okay, so we've collected the information from here. Now we're going to go through and we're going to see what other information we can learn based on the physical items in the room. Looks like we have a door button here. A new piece of evidence? Let's examine it now. Alright, so we're going to go ahead, we're going to click our door controls up here, and it's going to pop up our examination. This is used to open and close the concentration chamber. It's only operable from outside the chamber, so once you're inside and shut in, you can't find your way out unless somebody presses the button. Usage records show that it was opened twice this morning. Okay, I'm sure that'll come in handy a little later. Now, let's check this control panel here. We saw that Gideon was playing quite the musical interlude here. This is used to activate and control the consecration chamber. Usage records show that the ether output during the ceremony was well beyond safe ranges. Now, if you are if you're paying attention, you might have noticed it seems like we've already got some physical evidence that contradicts the stories that we have heard from both Gideon and Ruben's testimony. Let's go ahead and keep looking around. I think we're going to start over here. Now this, as you can see, is it looks like it's Gideon's workshop. We have a couple of models that he may have been working with. We also have our work desk. Gideon's workstation. It has evidence about the consecration ceremony. Now, the evidence that we find is a combination of the physical things that are present, but we also sometimes find bits and pieces of information that tell us a bit more about the world, like this, where we get the step-by-step instructions for the consecration ceremony. Step 1, place the coronet and the recipient in the chamber. Step 2, the performer and the recipient pray in silence. Step 3, begin the song to start modulating the ether. And step 4, intensify the ether output by bringing the performance to a crescendo. So we know that these are all the steps that are supposed to happen, and it sounds like these steps happened. It's just that step 4 went maybe a little bit harder than we anticipated. We'll also notice here on the desk that there's a coronet limiter. This was found in Gideon's workspace in pristine condition. The component is required to safely install the coronet without causing an ether oversurge. Now again, like we mentioned a little bit earlier here in the video, we are dealing with a world in which the safely install the coronet, that's an actual discussion, because it's an actual term, as there's a fusion of the sort of cybernetics and humanities. So this is not just about like wearing a crown. This is about taking a piece of technology and infusing it to Mother Miriam's body. Now let's go ahead, and it looks like we've covered all of the physical evidence from this side. Now let's go ahead and take a look at Ruben's side. Already you can tell that there's a pretty significant difference between these two brothers, right? If we look at the composition of the room here, Gideon's side of the office is fairly clean. It's fairly organized, not particularly cluttered. You can see that all of his tools are neatly organized up here. We even have like a little bit of really interesting design in that there's like sunlight shining through here, right? So we have this gold, warm presence from Gideon's side of the office. In contrast, when we come over here to Ruben's side, this is a very different feeling, right? We don't have any windows. The light that we have here is electronic. We have this the carpet is blue instead of gold. The lighting is blue instead of gold. There's papers and tools and cables strewn all over the place. So Ruben doesn't seem to have quite the same composure that his brother does. We're going to go ahead and look at some of the tools that are over here, the pieces of evidence we found. There's Ruben's workstation, where we have blueprints for both the coronet and a spear. Plans for constructing the ether coronet. The purpose of the device seems to be amplifying the user's ether output. The components are amplifier, casing, and limiter. And then we also have our spear blueprints. These are found on Ruben's workstation. Plans for restoring a relic that was recently brought to St. Walpurgis by Father Augustine. Okay, and let's see if we look around here. Wait a second. What are you? What is this? The Devil's Herb. I knew something nefarious is afoot. The Abbey must be purified of its scent. I should dispose of any that I find. Okay. Now, right now, we don't know what Devil's Herb is. But if you play a little bit further in the game, you'll get a sense of exactly what Devil's Herb is. And I will agree. Devil's Herb, get rid of it. Get rid of it all. Throw it away. Burn it. It's fine. Whatever. I'm getting stuck. I'm gonna move on. Alright, so we have gone through, we've collected physical evidence. It looks like we've found pretty much anything that we could in here. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna try and have discussions about some of the evidence that we found and see if we can find some contrasts. Now that I've discovered important pieces of evidence, let's ask this suspect about them. Let's select any evidence and ask him about it. Okay, so in the lower left-hand corner here, we have our evidence panel. We're going to go ahead and take a look at, I don't know, let's talk about Mother Miriam's body. I mean, it's fairly graphic, but if you were here when it happened, we're going to have to ask some questions. For any piece of evidence, once we click it while we're talking to a particular individual, we'll see a menu that shows up and allows us to ask a question about that piece of evidence. Good. I should remember that I can ask a suspect about any evidence that I find. This was never supposed to happen, Mother Miriam. I'm so sorry. I can at least be comforted that her death was painless. Alright, so let's go ahead and keep asking about stuff here. Coronet remains, found near Mother Miriam's body. My masterwork was perfectly fitted to Mother Miriam's brow. Even in pieces, you can see the sublime beauty of my artistry. It's like, Mother Miriam died, I don't know, probably hours ago, and Gideon is still just like concerned about himself. But this can't be all you found. Where's the limiter? Limiter? There was a safety device? The ether limiter was supposed to protect the coronet from an oversurge. Additionally, it was the crown jewel of the coronet. I suppose it's shattered. Damnation! Okay. Let's go ahead and ask some more. These door access records show that the chamber was sealed during the ceremony. There you have it, proof that the ceremony was performed flawlessly. Perhaps. What's curious is that the door was opened twice. The first time was when Ruben opened the chamber to let Mother Miriam in. The second time was just before the ceremony started, when you closed your eyes and prayed for guidance. With the one true God as my witness, I swear that is the truth. I kneeled and listened for his voice. It must have been Ruben who opened it for some reason. He was always skittish about the slightest possibility of malfunction. Okay, so we've got a few more pieces of evidence here, like this control panel. How exactly do you operate this device? Do you press the keys, much like a normal organ? That is a crude way to phrase it. There's much artistry in the performance. The rhythm and the melody of the music affects how the energy is transferred into the implant. Okay, so we've got a bunch of different pieces of evidence here. We should probably ask about this limiter, because you said that there was supposed to be a limiter. It's still intact. It's just not at the death scene. You recognize this component, Gideon? It was found at your workstation. The coronet limiter? Impossible. But the explosion, how can it be undamaged? Someone must have removed it from the coronet prior to the ceremony, all but ensuring that the ceremony would end in a bloody mess. I had nothing to do with this. Why would I sabotage my own work? Why indeed. Okay, so the plot thickens here, team.
Mother Miriam came to me for her consecration ceremony.
We also have the
I've
opportunity.
performed this many times before, so I was confident.
Do keep in mind that we also have the opportunity to ask for information about any of these individual these pieces that we have talked about before. So why don't we go through and let's ask about these different items along the way.
To prepare for the ceremony, I ordered Ruben to take Mother Miriam to the consecration chamber.
Now, why have Ruben do this? Why not open the chamber yourself? I did not want Mother Miriam to have to wait too long. Besides, menial work is all Ruben is good for anyway. You can see that, like, there's not a whole lot of... It feels like there's not a whole lot of love between these two brothers, even though they're working in the same office. It makes you wonder, like, what were their childhoods
I
like?
adjusted the coronet's amplification at my work table, and then placed it on Mother Miriam's head.
What exactly did you modify? I modified the amplifier within to its maximum setting. To do so, I had to temporarily remove the limiter. But I made sure to replace it before taking it to the chamber. Huh. Okay. Let's see, we've asked you some questions. Why don't we go ahead and ask Ruben some questions about our physical evidence as well. Let's see. Now, we didn't get to go through and ask Ruben about each of these different, the individual moments on his timeline.
Mother Miriam came to us to receive a consecration ceremony, but she wanted something extravagant.
You and Gideon greeted Mother Miriam together? That's right. Mother Miriam is our patron, so I insisted on being present.
Gideon suggested setting the coronet to have maximum ether output. I warned him that doing so is highly dangerous.
Let's ask about that too. They didn't heed your warning? Why not? Gideon believes that his so-called genius makes him impervious to danger. An ordinary man might fail, but not Gideon the Grand. As for Mother Miriam, she has only ears for Gideon. Today was no different. Curious. Ruben claims he went back to his workstation. So at this point, you can see that there's a discrepancy between the 2 points of the timeline. Ruben asks about, says that he just went back to work, but Gideon says something else. What does Gideon say? Let's switch to his testimony. So you'll see here that even in the midst of testimony, we can jump between characters by clicking on the name of the person whose timeline we want to review. Gideon claims that Ruben opened the door to the consecration chamber. Let's go back to Ruben.
Gideon convinced her to move forward with the ceremony anyway. Since he was going to handle everything, I went back to my tasks.
See that? Let's unmask Ruben's lie. Because at this point, we know if Gideon said that he ordered Ruben to go do this, to go take Mother Miriam to the chamber, something's not right. So we're going to present Ruben's order. Lies unmasked. Ruben Garamond, You did not return to your workstation after the discussion. Gideon ordered you to open the consecration chamber for Mother Miriam. Ordered me? Is that what he told you? Despite his delusions, Gideon is certainly not my master. I did open the chamber, it's true. I apologize for the omission. It's a regular part of our routine that it slipped my mind earlier. Alright, so Ruben has now amended his testimony. Let's examine open chamber. Now, once you catch somebody in a lie, you'll have the opportunity to basically go through and review what the timeline is after that revision. So we're going to click open chamber and see, good. This statement from Ruben's testimony is now verified for 2 reasons. 1. Corroboration. Gideon's testimony confirms that Ruben opened the door for Mother Miriam. 2. Specificity. It has a shorter time frame and describes a clearer set of events. I can assume that any verified statement like this is true. What's more, the contradiction weakened the suspect's resolve. His eye of providence glows, which allows me to enter his sanctum, the digital representation of his mind. Let's use his third eye to enter his sanctum and see what truly motivates this suspect. So again, this is where we find some of that fusion of human and electronic technology. We have a digital representation of the mind contained in the sanctum, and inquisitors are imbued with the power to go into a person's sanctum and learn about their true thoughts and motivations. Evidence discovered. Believer. We only cracked the outer layer of his sanctum this time. Still, let's examine the psychological evidence that we found. So here on our third tab, we're going to go to our psychological evidence. Interesting. This information will help me discern which statements to trust. Let's quickly examine each statement in his testimony again. Alright, so we're going to go through, and you can see that whenever we mouse over something, it will give us our little pop-up, and now we see whenever a piece of our psychology that we've discovered corresponds with a piece of information that we've been given in the timeline, we can add that as a motivation to say, like, yep, we probably believe that that is true. Some statements are now supported by the suspect's psychology. Next, I must find correlations between the suspect's behavior and existing daemons. Let's open the daemonology. You'll notice that there are differences between the pronunciations in some places, like Ada pronounces it daemon, while Ruben pronounces it demon. It's interesting to see the little differences from character to character. So, in our daemonology, we have Lucifer the Proud, the Prince of Daemons and the eternal adversary of Ein Sof, manifests in the ambitious and strong-willed, promising them their heart's desire in exchange for their soul. We have Beelzebub the Gluttonous, simple-minded daemon that debilitates the host, turning them into feral beasts. The host is compelled to consume stranger and filthier things until nothing remains of their humanity. We have Sathanas the Vengeful, a furious daemon that stokes the simmering rage within the host, preys upon the fervent and the righteous, goading them to take matters into their own hands. Finally, we have Lotan the Envious, playful but deceitful daemon who slowly drives the host mad with whispers of their own inadequacy. The host blames others for their ill fortune until the apparent injustice drives them to take what is rightfully theirs. If the suspect is possessed, there should be a psychological evidence that has a clear correlation with a daemon. Now, that believer aspect doesn't seem to have a clear correlation, but I must find more contradictions and present them to the suspect so that we can dig further, essentially, into the mind's eye, into the sanctum, to understand more of their motivations. Now that I have heard the testimony and gathered evidence, I can accuse the suspect. And so now we're going to try accusing on for size. This is basically how we want to confirm the end of the case. Once we have found the opportunity, means, and motive of the crime, if we find things that are viable, then we can go ahead and accuse that suspect. I can try as many times as I wish, but there is only one true answer for each section. Let's try to establish the opportunity. So, At this point, he's like, my brother is responsible for this tragedy, not me. So the question is, when would there be a time that he could have performed the murder? There's an awful long block of time here where you just say, I was working at my workstation. That seems a little suspicious. If you are accusing me of sabotage, when could I have done any of this? Good. If it's a valid answer, the suspect will be forced to admit that they could have committed the murder at the time. Otherwise, the suspect will give a counter-argument as to why that is impossible. If I was in the chamber then, Gideon or Mother Miriam would have seen me. Or what about when Gideon and Mother Miriam were praying? I was still working at that time. Do I have proof that he wasn't? If I do, I should contradict him with it first before accusing him. Okay, so we're getting a little closer here, right? It's like, that seems a little strange that you just say I was working that whole time, but we need proof to be able to back up our accusations. During the ceremony, no one was inside the chamber other than Mother Miriam. Okay, so obviously that didn't work out, so we're going to hit return. Next, we're going to try and establish the means. How did he go through and commit the murder? For this, we'll need to present physical evidence. So we're going to go back to our physical evidence tab and choose something here that makes sense. Now, we know that there's supposed to be the coronet limiter is supposed to be what prevents things from going haywire. So let's try this. Same as before, the suspect will accept my evidence if it's valid, and deny it if they can explain why I'm wrong. Gideon was the one that operated the device. How could I have affected the chamber or Mother Miriam? There was nothing faulty with the coronet itself. Indeed, the craftsmanship was flawless, as was Gideon's performance of the ceremony. But you removed the limiter from the coronet without Gideon's knowledge, which, coupled with the coronet's high amplification, caused an oversurge. Gideon's arrogance may have endangered Mother Miriam, but now we have to establish the motive, right? It's not enough to know that you could have done it and how you would have done it, but also why. I need to present a psychological evidence from their own sanctum. So we go in here, and the only psychological evidence we have is being believer. As a faithful servant of Ein Sof, or so he thinks, he knows that cybernetics are a critical part of the one truth. If he's the culprit, then when he's presented with the correct motive, the daemon within him will compel him to speak the truth. If not, he will deny my claim. Mother Miriam was our patron. Why would I want to harm her? Your faith is what drove you to kill Mother Miriam. Why would you think so? If anything, my faith is the proof that I would not have hurt a priestess. Alright, so that seems to have not carried, but the means did. The means seemed to give us a little bit of space there. But this accusation was unsuccessful, which means I must investigate further. Let's cancel for now and leave the suspect. Okay, so let's go ahead, we're gonna leave. And at this point, we're gonna now try and use a combination of analyzing the timeline with the evidence that we've been provided to try and figure out just who done it. Now, let's go ahead and go back to Gideon, because we know that there are a couple of pieces in Gideon's testimony that don't quite line up either, right? If we come over and jump to where he performed the ceremony.
Then I activated the consecration chamber and began the ceremony itself. The aether output was within safe ranges.
That's interesting, because he says it was within safe ranges, but our control panel... It's a crude way to phrase it. We know that our control panel says that it was well beyond safe ranges. So now we're going to go through, we're going to figure out exactly what we need to do.
I've performed this many times before, so I was confident.
We're going to figure out exactly what we need to do so that we can start asking Gideon some questions. We're going to start by trying to uncover a little bit more about what's going on here. Were you alone when greeting Mother Miriam? Yes, I'm certain I was alone then. And we know that's not true.
To prepare for the ceremony, I ordered Ruben to take Mother Miriam to the consecration chamber.
Okay. Why have Ruben do this? Why not open the chamber yourself? I did not want Mother Miriam to have to wait too long. Besides, menial work is all Ruben is good for anyway.
Meanwhile, I adjusted the coronet's amplification at my work table, and then placed it on Mother Miriam's head.
Okay, now I think we asked about this already. What exactly did you modify? Modifying the amplifier to its maximum setting.
We began by closing our eyes and praying together to Ein Sof. I thought I heard the chamber open, but didn't think much of it.
Okay, so we're going to ask here. You heard the door open? Perhaps. I think I also heard footsteps. But it's a faint, vague memory. Not to mention it's impossible. After all, Mother Miriam can't open the door from within. Ruben was probably working away on some new device or another. I must have imagined it. Now, when we go to perform the ceremony, Gideon claims that ether output values are within safe ranges, but the control panel indicates otherwise. Let's present the control panel to him and unmask his lie. Alright, so Ada can be a little dramatic, but when she finds something, she finds something. We know here that the control panel proves that something in his testimony is not quite right. Lies unmasked. You lied, Gideon. The ceremony wasn't safe. The control panel's records show that the ether output values were in abnormally high ranges. Of course it was. Mother Miriam wanted the coronet as powerful as it could be. But I am Gideon the Grand. With my talents, I had it under control. I made no errors. Something else went wrong. I just don't know what. Okay, so now Gideon has amended his testimony. Let's examine maintain control. Good. This statement from Gideon's testimony is now verified for 2 reasons. 1. Specificity. It has a shorter time frame and describes a clearer set of events. 2. Physicality. Gideon's testimony is now consistent with the records from the control panel. I can assume that any verified statement like this is true. Alright, so let's go ahead and check
here. We began
here.
by closing our eyes and praying together to Ein Sof. I thought I heard the chamber open, but didn't think much of it.
Did you hear or notice anything? Thought I heard someone behind me. I don't remember exactly. My mind was focusing on the ceremony. You can see that things have changed a little bit now that we have these updates. And you'll also notice Gideon's sanctum is glowing. Ooh, he's a narcissist. So when we go into psychology and learn about this, just found in Gideon's sanctum, he craves attention and sincerely believes that he is the best cybernetician in the world. Right, let's go and check this maintain control.
Was dangerously high, but I had the chamber under control.
You sound a little unsure of yourself there, Gideon. You've now admitted that the ceremony was risky. What makes you so confident that you maintained control? Because I am a maestro. I remember every bit of my performance. Nothing that I could have done, nothing that I did could have overcome the coronet limiter. Okay, so there's some stuff that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right? The other thing that is a little suspicious, Gideon back here.
Mother Miriam came to me for her consecration ceremony. I've performed this many times before, so I was confident.
But why are you saying that you were the only one here? This contradicts Ruben's statement that he was there when you were doing your introductions as well. Let's find out more, shall we? Lies unmasked. Lies, Gideon. Ruben tells me he was with you when Mother Miriam arrived. What? Come to think of it, yes. He was standing there, scowling as usual. He was not just standing there. He tried to stop you. Mother Miriam wanted her coronet to be extraordinary, so you convinced her to increase its ether output. Ruben warned you about the danger, but you insisted to Mother Miriam that the ceremony was safe. I love my brother, but Ruben can be a sniveling coward. He's exaggerating the risk. Yes, the ceremony had some danger. However, it was well within my abilities. I made no error. This is how it happened. Yep, give me that amended testimony. Yep. Okay, so let's go ahead and start it here
Mother
from the
Miriam
beginning.
came to me for her consecration ceremony. I've performed this many times before, so I was confident. Mother Miriam wanted the coronet to be spectacular, so I suggested maximizing its aether amplification.
You sound a little unsteady there, Gideon. Okay. And then at this point, you can see that Ruben is here.
To prepare for the ceremony, I ordered Ruben to take Mother Miriam to the consecration chamber.
And from here, the timeline seems to line up. There aren't any other changes.
Meanwhile,
Let's
I
go
adjusted
ahead.
the coronet's amplification at my work table, and then placed it on Mother Miriam's head.
Let's go ahead and look into the sanctum. Oh, he's a skeptic. Found in Gideon's sanctum, speaks and acts virtuously in public, but doesn't really believe in the one truth or the demons. Weren't they rooted out 100 years ago? Now things are getting a little interesting. Gideon, apparently, even though he claims to be super devout, might not be. Let's go ahead and ask him about that. I am a faithful member of the Abbey, but surely demons are a thing of the past. There hasn't been a murder in 100 years, sister. Why would one happen now? Okay, so maybe one happened because you did it, buddy. Alright, so let's go ahead and we'll leave him. Excellent. I've gone through the fundamental steps of investigating a murder. However, there is much I have yet to uncover about this incident. I should continue to find more information, contradict the suspects with them, and try to accuse a suspect. No one will tell me when I am ready to accuse. That is entirely up to my discretion. However, there are no consequences for a failed accusation. Each failure will help bring me closer to the truth of the incident. Well, folks, we have already found out a significant portion of what's taken place in this case, but we don't know who did it. There's still a little bit more information to be found here, and you can actually find that out yourself by downloading the demo for Lucifer Within Us, which is currently available on Steam. I appreciate you coming by and checking this out. I'm going to go ahead and leave you on a little bit of a cliffhanger. If you want to know whether or not Gideon was responsible, or maybe it was Ruben after all, seems like he might have a little something to hide too. You can try and do the investigation yourself by downloading the demo. The game is still available as part of the Steam Game Festival, so you can find it highlighted with a ton of other games that have demos and new information, new content available. You can also go ahead and check out the game by picking it up when it releases on October 15th, and it's published by Kitfox Games. It's a studio that you know for all sorts of other great titles like Boyfriend Dungeon, upcoming Mondo Museum, Dwarf Fortress, and a number of other cool titles too, like Fit for a King. So, thank you so much for giving me some time and some attention. You can find me on Twitter at Wallstormer. My name's Josh Boykin. Thank you so much for their time. And thanks to Kitfox Games for giving me the opportunity to share this with you. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about Lucifer Within Us, and I hope you check out the game when it releases on October 15th. Have a great one, folks. Keep your eyes up, keep your hearts open. See you soon.